Hey guys, welcome back for what should be the finale here. We're gonna put the strings on, do a setup, but I'm gonna start out by just getting a chock load of shoutouts out of the way. First and foremost, thank you to BBM for reaching out for a couple of tips on setups and specs on basses that I hadn't looked at. A little bit of advice about the pickups here, which are now installed. We'll go over that when I get it on the bench. But also thanks to everybody who helped me along the way, whether it was with the finish. BCG Chris. I'll link his channel as well as BBM's. Um, Ted, Brant, John, everybody over there. Anybody in the comments who suggested anything or had any advice to offer me. We'll get to that in a second too. And last but not least, um, thank you to Snug for sending this over quite a while ago. My plan is to put this on there because I think it'll look pretty cool. We'll go over that when it's on there. A little something else that I might have to do at the end, but I'm gonna get it strung up and see what kind of clearance we have under here for the strings, just to make sure that I'm not setting up anything that's going to affect the sound of the bass. So that being said, um, I am pretty happy with how everything turned out, minus the little bit of extra rabbit fur. Thank you, Butter. Um, there are a couple spots, and I don't know if you can see this on the camera, where there's that white spots, especially on the backside, that seem to have gotten into the grain on the sides. I'll try and show it on the camera too. It's more noticeable on the edges. I don't know if that's a stain problem. I don't know. You can see it in the heel too. I don't in the horn. I don't know if that's something I did with the stain that didn't come out right, or if I got some of the McGuire's compound in there or the wax. I did try and use a brush on it. I did try and use a brush with a little spray weight to see what it did, and not much doing. So if anybody has any suggestions on how I can fix that, or if I'm just going to have to maybe tape off the orange, which I'm happy with, and just try and gently sand those spots and reapply a little bit of stain and Tru-Oil, well, then that's what we'll do. But I can do that on my own time. You guys have seen all that already. All right, let's get this on the bench and let's get some strings on and start setting it up. Okay, so I think we're ready to put the strings on, but I think the easiest way for you guys to see what I'm doing to try and ensure that I don't make the same mistake as I did with the set of strings that came with it, wherein I took especially the first string and made it too short so it wouldn't hold tune without popping. I'm going to put on the one string, show you what I'm doing to make sure that I get enough wraps around. I did get my set of Diodario bass strings, and holy cow, are bass strings expensive. So I might actually subscribe to the boil and reuse method. So let me get this out here. We need to get everything out from under my bass that I'm going to need to actually work on it. All right, that's as close as I'm going to get you guys, I think. So let's go overhead camera and just tilt it back a little bit this way. All right, so you guys can see the tuners a little better. These are split shaft tuners, which means poke it down, wind it around. However, the strings usually come too long, and what I did last time was I cut one way too short. So what I'm going to do, got our colored balls, guys. We're happy and easy to see what's going on here. So our brass or yellow is our first, well, fourth string. Saying first because I'm looking at it backwards, having it away from me. So we're just going to get this straightened out very carefully, work it through here and up the saddle, which those are probably going to have to come down pretty dramatically according to the instructions that BBM sent me. All right, so yeah, this is the other issue that I'm seeing is that nut slot is a little tight for these strings. So I'm just gonna, it is a plastic nut, so I'm hoping, yeah, I can see the string doing it. So I'm not trying to lower this too much because I didn't even know what the height is. I just want to widen it a little bit so that's not sticking so much. And I'll probably do that with all the strings. Much better. And then once we're done with the setup part of it and I don't have to file anything, I'll throw some nut lube in there as well. This might be something that gets replaced as a plastic with a bone nut down the road. But being this is my first bass setup, let's practice with the plastic one, and if I mess it up, well, then a bone nut is going to come into play. All right. So I'm going to pull this back at least one, see if I can get two wraps around here, sort of. I'm not going to go too tight with it or at all, apparently. So two wraps, And I know I've got it a little tight, so I can probably cut it right here and have it be long enough. We're going to do something similar at the end with the first string as well, because that one's going to be a little longer, so we might not have as much real estate. Whoa! There it is. Going to keep that on hand. This might come in handy for the rest of the nut. We'll keep the ends of the strings for that period. All right. So now if I've done this correctly, I should be able to poke it down, fold it over, and start winding. And I'm going to do this by hand because I don't think my winder... Well, let's give it a shot. That's going the wrong way. I'm not sure the winder is going to cope well with these big tuning keys. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, I can already see I've got too much string. So let's cut just a little bit more off. I'm going to try and face this down now instead of away to see if I can prevent it from flying everywhere. There we go. All right, let's try this again. Whoa. Okay, that's a little tricky. These, if you get it off center, these big keys want to pull to the side. All right, and we're not on the saddle. Let's get that up there. Yeah, these are a little tougher to work with than standard strings. All right. All right. Good enough for now. And we've got a probably pretty high action. We'll see when we get all the strings on. All right, guys. I am going to fast forward this. All right, guys, as promised, we have gotten strings on a bass. I'm going to try and stretch these just a little bit. I'm not worried about it being perfectly in tune, but I want to get it close because we are going to be trying to tune it up. Check the relief again now that the strings are on. Check the action. Set the action first. Just verify after we set the action how close we are to the nut here. This nut may need to be replaced. I don't know. We'll see how they sit. And then from there, we'll check the intonation and then see if we can get some sound samples out of it. So let's do some string stretching. This I'll speed up. All right, we've done some string stretching. let me pick up a couple things here, and we're going to bring the tuning pedal over, since we're going to be doing intonation later anyways, and we'll see where our tuning's at. Be right back. All right, we have a tuner in view. I like that better, I can see, but helps if I have the pickups turned up. Now we're going sharp. All right, we have a bass mostly tuned up. Let me swap things around here, and we'll get you back into where we're going to start looking at the relief and the action, but I'm going to switch it around to where it's easier for me to look at. I'm going to leave the tuner there because I have a suspicion we're going to need it, because these strings are going to be taking a while to stretch back in, but at least they're at the right tension now, and we can just double check our relief. I'm going to do this in playing position real quick. Pardon the interruption. Yep, we have just a smattering of relief, which I think is fine. I can always just tweak that if I'm seeing anything weird going on. All right, next thing we're going to do is double check this action at the 12th fret here. I'm going to try and do this in a standing position. So I'm going to start with this action gauge because it has the millimeters on it. BBM has a couple of different bases set up anywhere between 2 millimeter and 2.5 millimeter, depending on, because he had the one that he uses for slapping, and he had that one set up a little higher. So let's see if you guys, this action looks pretty high, which would be fair because that's how I had it. Woo, doggy. Yeah, that is coming in. At the 12th, we are, dang, almost 3.5. All right, so these all got to come down quite a bit, and then we'll retune. So let's get our Allen wrenches out here and see if I can find the right one. One of these days, I'm going to get little baggies to put ones in for organized by size, if I can read them all, or I'll get a set that actually has a case with a size on it. But let's try 2.5 millimeter. I think that's too big. Yep. So we need a tiny, tiny one for adjusting the action lower, which is fine because if you look at where that bridge is sitting, those are dead straight. Tim already mentioned to me that I want those down at somewhat of an angle, and then I'm just going to have to try and match the radius of the bridge. So we'll start with this side because this one's already a little uneven. And instead of wiring up the bench tuner, just to get us in the right neighborhood so I can measure action, I am going to borrow my headstock tuner over here. It'll be off screen for you guys. Look out, Butter. All right. I don't know what ratio those tuners are, but it doesn't take much to take it up a half step or down a half step. So let me see. That side is still a little higher. Let's take that down a notch. Trying to make sure the saddles are going to be straight. I am not wild about this bridge because of the offset where the strings go through and where they sit over the barrels. I don't know if that's normal for a bass bridge, but that might be a candidate for an upgrade at some point. Right now, I'm just going to see if we can get her up and running. All right, let's check out where we're at, just so I can get some kind of idea how far down these are going to have to go. Getting closer. Let's go down. That's just under 3. I want to get closer to that 2.5 mark. Start from there and adjust downward if we can, depending on how everything is sitting with the frets. But I'm actually going to take these other ones down a little bit too. Then we'll tune everything back up. So I will probably cut back when we are measuring the action again. All right, I'm feeling pretty good about this now, guys, because looking at this, we are somewhere between 2.3 and 2.4, a little less on the higher side. So that seems good. I'm going to hook up the tuner again, and we're going to try and do this in the playing position. I'll move back to the overhead cam so you guys can hopefully see what I'm doing. And we'll get the tuner back up and running along with the headstock tuner, and I'm going to do it in playing position to try and see where we're at. What do you guys think? I like the look of that being on there, but maybe this will come back when I do a bridge upgrade, because I'm just not certain about how this is sitting, and I think at some point I'm going to want to get the different screws in the bridge. So I think we're going to hold off on the pickup cover for now. Sorry, Snug, but that'll be another adventure with the bass when we decide to do some upgrades. Let me strobe tuner plugged in. I'm going to keep the headstock tuner on as well so that we can all see what's going on. Also, this is relatively new to me with a strobe tuner, so I'm going to try and use it to compare the two. Make sure the volume and tone is all the way up. All right, let me get into playing position. Try not to turn stuff around. Let's get the strobe in here where you guys can see it. We're a little sharp on the E, now a little flat, but that's fine because we want to tune up. Check the A again. Yeah, just a very slight difference between the headstock tuner and the strobe, which thinks we're a little flat yet. And that's pretty good. A little sharp. And the G. It's pretty dead on. All right, so we got E, which is a little flat. Still a little flat. Okay, it's pretty stable. A little sharp. So we want to take, if it's sharp, we want to pull it back to make the string longer. I am going to put up a sign if I was incorrect there. That seems close enough for me. Let's get the A. That looks much closer. I'm going to live with that for now. Now we're just going to double check the basic tuning. All right, I'm going to unplug everything here. I'm just going to sit with this in my lap real quick and just go up and down the neck for a second and make sure. All right, we do have a little bit of string buzz on the first two strings too, so we're going to have to take that action up a little bit and then just reset the tuning and intonation once more. So, okay, it's not going to be quite as low as I want, but that's fine. I would rather have it a little bit higher and no fret buzz. And I think a different bridge is going to be part of the action. And I think there may be a couple of wonky frets up here that I may not have rocked as accurately as I should have. All right, let me double check those. All right, guys, I probably cut out a good chunk of that. I was farting with the action just a little bit to get some of these frets up here to not fret out so much. That could be a combination of things. Like I said, either a couple wonky frets that I missed with the rocker. I don't think I had missed anything, but that's something we can go back and check. I do suspect that this bridge is not the greatest, and that is something that we will probably address for a future mod, and that's when we'll readdress everything on the upper part of the neck. For right now, it plays, it's intonated, mostly, and I think I'm going to be able to do some stuff with it for now, but I do want to come back, like I said, and look at that. Quite possibly, maybe there needs to be a shim under the neck, and I can just take a look at things that way too. But once we remedy that, then that's going to be at some point in the future coming back and putting this on, because I really do think this looks cool. I think it makes it look like a classic jazz bass. So what we'll do at that point is take our time, mark everything with the middle, get this put on, and I think we're going to try and save the strings because, like I said, yikes, they are expensive. So this might not be a project in the immediate future. Let's go over to the other workstation so we can get some sound samples out of this bad boy. All right, here we are with the finished product. I'm going to give you a couple samples of sounds. I'm just going to do something real quick. I only have 2 different bass settings currently on my Spark environment, and one of them is a driven tone. I'm going to play it for you, which is why we're not using it for the samples. I do not enjoy this. I don't know. It's supposed to be some sort of fuzz, I think. It sounds rather, let's be honest, farty to me, especially if you get up on the higher end. And sorry, just guitar player playing bass badly here. You'll have to forgive me. I do plan to get better. I'm just learn some simple lines to lay some stuff down for myself, but I'll probably have to look up a couple of videos. So anyways, let's get some clean tones out of this. So I am still getting a little bit of a hum when I turn volumes down, which is weird. So I'm going to turn down the neck. Introduces a little bit of hum. So right now we've just got the bridge pickup, which I also think might need to be moved up just a little bit because it seems a little soft. So that's just the bridge pickup. I'm going to turn the bridge pickup down, turn the neck pickup up. So with one turn down and one up, you get hum. With both, when I turn them both on, you'll hear the hum goes away. But the neck pickup is noticeably louder, probably because of the height difference. And you'll notice I'm using a pick right now, and that's just because I haven't played enough bass for my fingerstyle to be anything usable. All right, let's just turn both pickups all the way up, and there goes the hum. And I think this is probably how I'll use it most of the time, because I think the sound is the most pleasant. So, all right, I don't think it sounds too bad. I know there are some things to be addressed with the action, but like I said, that's probably going to be happening in future updates where we'll do a resetup. After a while, we'll let these strings set. I will say The strings that came with this were absolute garbage because now that I've got some Didarios on there, the difference in feel and sound is much different. Of course, I could have had the pickups set up wrong in the initial setup as well. Possibly having the strings sitting under the retainer up here correctly. Um, just a whole bunch of stuff. Maybe it just likes having a good finish on it. So anybody has any suggestions for things that I can look at in the future on this, I would greatly appreciate it. I know there's quite a few bass players out there that may have a little bit more knowledge than I, but I think if I do go the route of getting a different bridge to put on here, maybe something with some brass compensated saddles instead of these eh, ones to see if I can get the intonation a little better dialed in, and definitely going to be looking at a bone nut if I can get the right measurements for this because this plastic, every time I tune, I can see white in the strings. It's just chewing its way through that nut pretty quickly. So that's going to have to be addressed. And maybe tuners, but I don't know. I kind of like the split top. They seem to be holding tune fairly well, especially considering these are new strings. So, right. So thanks for coming along on what turned to be a rather long adventure. But for a $50 bass kit, I learned a whole ton about finishing, bass setup, everything else. So I think the next time I get a bass, maybe even a short scale or something, just to see if I can handle that a little better. But I wanted a full size one, and also just the price of the kit worked out well. So thank you again to everybody that I mentioned at the top of the video. Links to their channels will be down below in the shout out section. I will have chapters for everything so you guys can skip around, and I promise I will kind of, I promise. I promise I have already fast forwarded through some of the boring parts that you guys didn't have to watch again as I restring something, try and intonate and raise action up and down for the 17th time. That didn't seem like it needed to be a 2-hour video for you. So until next time, when we're moving on to different projects, thank you guys again for all the advice. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.